Hello everybody, this is Renaissance Craft, and today we're going to be going further into developing a character and what exactly, this will be a little bit longer video than normal, talking about um, types of characters, what characters should be, um, why to make a character, etc., etc. So as in a previous video that we went over, if I can find it, this guy right here, we discussed and talked about designing him as a character and the changes to making the character itself, the line drawing of him, and then moving on to the actual picture or the semi-finished sketch of what he's supposed to look like. So we're going to take this a little bit further now and talk about, how to make him come to life, how to create him over and over again. So the most important thing to do if you're actually creating a character that you want to, create over and over and over and over without, him changing. Now, obviously, that character that I created there, I haven't, perfected how to do it, but we're going to use him as the example. So kind of just like when you first started out making the character, you're just starting with simple shapes of what you want him to be, and then going from there, kind of how he should look. So that is when you're actually creating the character to create multiple times. I don't really care if you're going realistic, if you're going cartoony, if you're doing comic book. You want to know what shapes make up your character. So mainly, his entire thing is just circles. Everything I did with him was very basic circles. So I know that, and I can actually create. Hold on, let me double check. I got his back foot right. Yeah. So, I know what he is. So I'm just, sorry, I'll use a little bit darker here. So, I know that these three circles create his head, his throat, and his hump above his head. And then his back is just a big circle connecting all those. Then he has a big arm here. He has his upper arm connecting to his forearm, and then his feet with his toes here. And then he has his back leg here with his feet here, and then his big round tail. Now, I can create this every time, and regardless of the angle I'm doing, I know it's going to be similar to that I'm creating. So, I can start to create him regardless of what angle I'm doing. These lines are just kind of overlapping, and I'm just creating, him over and over and over again, so I can kind of, know how he is going to look or feel. So I can create the same character with just using shapes. And that is kind of one of the most important parts of when you're creating, is you're creating the creature to create multiple times, and you want to feel confident that every time you create him, you're not making a completely new creature character. And once again, it doesn't matter if it's a cartoon, if it's illustration, if it's a comic or very realistic. It really doesn't matter. The most important thing is to create a very broken down, simplistic idea of what that character, creature, object will be, so you can put it into different, the straight on pose, the 3/4, the profile, the straight on, the 3/4, or any other, variation in that. If you want him, his arm to all of a sudden cross over his face, you want him to be actually standing on his hind legs. You still have the idea of these other ones of how he should look. So you can actually create this character, with all that he's going through in the exact, then all you got to think about is, okay, what will the throat, what will this change when its head is tilting up, pulling away from the body? Like, how will that change that? I have the basic shape, but when you actually start drawing into detail, then you got to say, okay, that's actually going to pull up, pull, that's going to stretch that, this is going to pull here, this is going to be there, how is his hands going to perform, what will he look like, how will that affect this? That might not be as big because it's stretching down into this, pulling into his tail. His tail's actually going to, come up and then flatten out when it hits the ground, so that actually bends a little bit. How does this leg look? Is it going to kind of stay the same? It bends back, but, how would that actually look by not bending back? So then you're creating that difference of, these views, but you still use the simple shapes to create the character, so it at least feels and looks like the exact same creature that, or whatever you're creating. We're using a creature, so I'm going to keep saying creature over and over again. That way you can always recreate that same character, that same creature, and you won't need to worry about the actual differences in the perspective or the design you're doing, and it will also help you create better moods, better things, etc., etc. So this is just something very basic to think about when you're creating a character, a creature, or any type of object or being. Just think about the most simplest form to break it down before you start to mass produce that character. So when you do start creating the character over and over again, exactly what it's supposed to look like, and everybody else will believe that it's the same thing regardless of what pose, or if it has a face with facial expressions, or if it's doing a very quick violent motion, or whatever the case may be. It still feels, even if it looks at times different. I mean, if you look at your face in the mirror, you can create 100 different faces, and sometimes you won't look like yourself at all, but you still have the same basic features. You're just contorting your body or your face, facial muscles into something else. So just something to think about. This actually wasn't a very long video. This was just a quick view. I apologize for telling you it would be at first. The next video will actually be the long video on this, continuing on creating the character. I am Renaissance Craft. Talk to you next time.